I'm 78 now, and I'm finally certain about something I wish I'd known decades ago. Living your whole life trying to be perfect for others is the quickest way to lose yourself. When I was younger, everyone praised me for being obedient, polite, silent, and endlessly available. For years, I took pride in saying yes to my husband, to my children, to my family, to my job. I believed that sacrifice made me noble. Loving everyone else more than myself felt like the right thing to do. But years later, I found out the truth. What I called love was actually self-abandonment. For 60 years I lived as different versions of the ideal woman. Wife, mother, helper, caretaker. I was convinced that pleasing people would bring happiness. Yet instead of peace, I earned exhaustion, resentment, and a hollow identity. I existed, but I wasn't alive. 7 years ago, my husband passed away after 42 years of marriage. And do you know what hit me the hardest? Not the loneliness, not the memories, but the terrifying realization that I didn't even know who I was without him. My whole identity had been attached to titles. Someone's wife, someone's mother, someone's support system. Who was I on my own? I had no answer. Looking back to my youth around age 22, I followed the plan society handed me. People expected women to get married, be good partners, raise children, support their men, and silence their own desires. And I followed it without question. I married a good man and played the role I thought I was born for. Cooking, cleaning, smiling, staying quiet. I didn't hate my life. I had joy, laughter, children, memories. But buried beneath all that was a whisper only I could hear. Is this all there is? I ignored that whisper. For 40 years. At 35, I dreamed of studying literature, maybe becoming a teacher someday. But life always had a reason to shut the door. Kids, finances, timing. Later, I asked again, but then his retirement came, his aging parents needed support, and once more I told myself later. But later never arrived. At 71, after my husband died, I realized there was no one left to wait for. No excuses left to hide behind. And that's when my story truly began. What happens when a woman who spent decades living for everyone else suddenly has nothing but time, silence, and her own reflection? The months after his death were foggy. I woke up each morning uncertain of my purpose. For 6 decades I'd been needed. Meals to cook, schedules to manage, emotions to soothe. Now there was nobody asking for anything. I felt useless, invisible. But then something unexpected happened. About 18 months into my grief, while sorting through old boxes, I discovered a letter he wrote before we married. In it, he described me as brilliant, curious, brave, someone overflowing with potential. Reading his words broke me, because the woman he described no longer existed. Somewhere along the way, I had buried her. That day, I sat on the floor holding that letter and cried, not because I missed him, but because I missed myself. I realized I'd spent a lifetime waiting for permission, waiting for timing, waiting for circumstances to change. And then it struck me. I had been alive for 72 years, yet I had never lived for me. So I made a decision. I enrolled in community college. Literature, philosophy, art history, subjects I adored. Walking into class as the oldest student there should have embarrassed me. But instead, I felt electric. For the first time, I felt alive rather than obligated. I also learned the power of saying no. When my children called asking for last-minute favors, I kindly refused. When friends invited me to things I didn't enjoy, I said, no thank you. And shockingly, nobody fell apart. I began traveling. Small trips at first, just weekends. I explored museums, parks, tiny cafes. Slowly, I discovered new passions, new confidence, and new independence. And it hit me. I wasn't selfless all those years. I was silent. And silence kills dreams. Now, when I look in the mirror, I no longer see a stranger. I see a woman reborn. Not someone's mother, wife, or background character, but the main character of her own story. Yet the joy of rebirth brought another emotion. Heartbreak. Because I finally tasted the life I always wanted at 72. And I will never get those years back. But what if I told you the most painful lesson wasn't about time lost, but about why young women today are repeating my mistake? Part 3 reveals the truth. Women of my generation were raised on sacrifice. We were taught that good women shrink, not shine. We learned to soften our voices, prioritize others, and apologize for wanting more. And that belief shaped our entire lives. But what shocks me today is seeing younger women, surrounded by opportunity, repeat the same pattern. They postpone dreams for marriage, children, approval, and fear. They think they have time, endless time. The truth? You don't. Life won't hand you permission. No moment will magically open the perfect door. There will always be someone needing you, depending on you, asking you to delay yourself. But delaying becomes a habit, and habits become decades. I tell women now, pursue school while your kids are young if that's what you desire. Change careers before retirement. Leave relationships that suffocate you, because regret weighs more than fear ever will. People ask me, doesn't choosing yourself make you selfish? No. Choosing yourself makes you honest. Loving yourself teaches you how to love others better. When you sacrifice everything, resentment quietly builds. And resentment destroys the love you're trying to protect. I spent 60 years giving and ended up empty. And while I rebuilt myself, I can't reclaim lost time. That is the price of waiting. And here's a truth many hate to hear. No matter how perfect you try to be, someone will always be disappointed. Someone will always want more. Someone will call you selfish. So why not live for the only opinion that truly matters, your own? But the ending of my story isn't tragedy, it's liberation. Part 4 tells how these last 6 years became the greatest years of my life. I've been living for myself for only 6 years now. Just 6. But they have been brighter than the 72 years before them. I wake up excited to read, learn, travel, sit alone with coffee, or simply breathe without guilt. I speak honestly. I say yes when I want yes and no when I mean no. I choose joy, not approval. And for the first time, I don't feel small. I feel free. If I could speak to my younger self, I would beg her to stop waiting. I would tell her dreams are not selfish. That boundaries don't make you cruel. That life is happening right now, not after retirement, not when children are raised, not someday. People think time is generous. But it isn't. Time is a thief when ignored. I wish I had lived like this at 35 instead of 72. But even now, I am grateful. Because these last years have shown me the truth. Your life belongs to you. You are allowed to take up space. You are allowed to change direction. You are allowed to choose yourself. And you must. Because one day you will wake up at 78, look back, and realize the greatest tragedy isn't growing old. It's growing old without ever living. If these words reached you, don't save them for later. Today is your turning point.